Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Lee, and I'll be talking about my independent study I conducted with Dr. Eisner last semester. I am a psychology major, also minoring in Italian studies, and I'm also a research assistant for a Duke Psychology lab that specializes in self control. I studied Dante's innovative view of self control and love from a psychological perspective, specifically with his dream of the Dolce Serena in Purgatorio. I was struck by Dante's divergence from the classical idea of self control, which I'll get into later, into a more subconscious decision making process that psychologists are recently exploring for self control. I was also struck by Dante's position on the relationship between love and self control, which holds accountability for someone's actions despite love being involved. This view also strayed from the classical view on love and self control, revealing the deeper intricacies of Dante's Divine Comedy that makes his works so infamous and relevant to this day. So, first, I'll give some background in Purgatorio, and it's the second part of Dante's Divine Comedy, the first part being Inferno, then going on to Purgatorio, and then to Paradiso. Dante structures Purgatorio as a mountain that Virgil leads Dante up in order to reach earthly paradise to find his love, Beatrice, who will then lead him to heaven. On the way, Dante and Virgil encounter numerous souls paying for their sins on this mountain, and this mountain is divided into seven terraces, organizing the sinners based off of the roots of their sins, such as envy, gluttony, and lust. Purgatorio stands apart from the Inferno and Paradiso with this thematic stress on corruption of love, which molds the motivations of sinful acts. Dante's focus on distorted, corrupted, and excessive love, as well as a focus on sinners' motivations, makes a psychological analysis of Purgatorio more fascinating. So, for the classical view of self control was and still is often conceived as a battle between hot, impulsive processes and cold, deliberate ones. This is from Plato's interpretation of self control as a charioteer steering a chariot pulled by two winged horses, one that is noble, rule bound, and rational, and a second that is unruly, impulsive, and illogical. Self control, according to Plato, occurs when the charioteer pilots the chariot to destination successfully. And Aristotle also stressed the human necessity of self control to make moral decisions. Brutish men, who are people who act in wanton, destructive behavior, also lack self control because they have no power of choice or calculation. However, numerous philosophers and writers during this period also recognized the natural urge to fall into our carnal desires as not wicked, but weak. If it is not a strong conviction that resists, but a weak one, as in men who hesitate, we sympathize with their failures to stand by such convictions against strong appetites. However, Dante, the quote right above me, asserts that instead of becoming victim to opposing moral forces and the strength of love over one's actions, human beings have free will that can dominate over these desires, stressing self control as a keeper to moral behavior, unlike Aristotle's claim that it is understandable for strong appetites such as love to make mistakes. Before Dante's dream in Purgatorio, Virgil tells Dante that the power to curb that love is still your own. And noble power is what Beatrice means by free will. It's also worth noting that the overall structure of the afterlife he creates punishes sinners who act immorally out of love. Now let's examine the psychological innovations on self control Dante demonstrates through his dream. In Purgatory 19, Dante experiences his second dream at the transition from lower to upper Mount Purgatory. In this dream, the siren, called the Dolce Serena, is a crippled, crooked woman approaching Dante and tries to lure him in. However, while he looks at her, the image of the siren slowly contorts so that he sees a beautiful, perfect woman as his eyes transform the wanness of her features. Instead of someone else deceiving and transforming themselves, Dante's own eyes change the siren's form. He claims agency to the temptation as if he is deceiving himself. Dante's self induced fallacy strays away from the classical idea of love's deception. It was not love that corrupts Dante's, but his gaze that loosened her tongue with the coloring that love prefers. Love is not the driving force of irrationality, but is only the filter that Dante's eyes implement to transform the wicked being into the Dolce Serena. Instead of shifting the siren into a state of physical beauty, he transforms the siren in perfect order, or lagizzava, which can also be translated to straightening it. Dante demonstrates the psychological phenomenon of bounded rationality, showing that our perception can deceive us, which is not necessarily an evil force or love, More specifically, our brain doesn't transform physical objects randomly, but transforms them in a way that creates a perfect image, an image, for example, that follows the laws of physics. The checker shadow illusion is one iconic example of how our brain can transform an object into perfection. In the figure on the left, our brain perceives blocks A and B as different shades, with block A being much darker than block B. However, the shades of these two blocks are the exact same. However, our brain does not comprehend this like a computer would because we use context clues of the light source, cylinder, and shadows to conclude that block B must be lighter than block A. The laws of physics that we have learned from our past experiences tell us that if they were indeed the same shade, block B would appear darker because it is in the shadow of the green cylinder. We can logically comprehend that this is a computer image, so the colors can be digitized to anything we want, but our eyes do not reflect this knowledge. Only when we break the shadow, like in the image right above me, can we see that they are indeed the same shade. Human beings can la Sava, just as Dante did with the siren. Dante shifts the central figure of deception from a subjective feeling of love that has been historically used to transfer accountability to a more realistic psychological phenomenon that reclaims individual responsibility for self control, even when the deception is subconscious and natural, just like this. Also, Dante presents two prominent structural features of self control from psychology: the requirement of a conflict and the importance of goal establishment to enact self control. According to Misrath and Fishback's paper, one must identify that she faces a self control conflict in order to successfully pursue a goal. By presenting the information that the siren leads others astray, Dante sets up an identifiable conflict that presents him with multiple options: either fall into the sweet temptation or resist to pursue his goal, which is to successfully reach heaven. These studies add the prospect that conflict identification and resolution are not necessarily conscious and deliberative. Rather, they also involve non conscious, energy efficient processes. This dream is not only a demonstration of Dante implementing self control as a process with multiple stages, but his own subconscious strategy to strengthen self control implementation for the rest of Dante's journey. The conflict with temptation of Dolce Serena is set up while Dante is asleep, set apart from his physical journey of the mountain. The dreams as a framework of Dante's transition through significant locations of Purgatorio is a unique illustration of self control strategies. Dante assimilates the teachings about free will and love from Virgil they had earlier before this dream into his own thoughts in this dream to fortify them. I can show many more connections between psychological findings and Dante's Purgatorio during the symposium, such as process with thresholds over time, implementing self-control strategies, and assigning values while making decisions. But I have limited time, so please come with any questions or clarifications. I would happy to go into more depth on Dante's innovative concepts of love, self-control, and psychology. Thank you so much.